Hi and welcome. So today I want to share with you how you can move from sort of being at the mercy of food and craving it to having a more balanced approach to food and actually desiring food as an emotional eater. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist and emotional eating expert. And today I wanted to share sort of this discernment and how we can move from that sort of obsessive compulsive way we are with food towards just feeling good around food. And this is something that my clients, they want to achieve. This is something that sort of plagues them. They feel so out of control with food. They feel like they're just constantly obsessing and using all of their brain power and on thinking about food. And they want to just have that relationship to food that feels good. And of course, as an emotional eater, this can be really difficult. And especially if we have diet mentality and all of that, obsessing about food has become this sort of pastime for us. And so I totally get it. When I was on my emotional eating journey, all I thought about was food, the next meal, counting calories. Is this good enough to eat? There were just so many questions around food. And it's really debilitating and it makes you feel like you have no choice. So I wanted to discern these sort of feelings. When we are craving food and we're obsessing about it, we feel like we're out of control, like something is pulling us and taking us away from ourselves. Whereas when we feel good around food, we have choice and we can choose what to eat. We can choose to indulge. We have more autonomy. We don't feel like we're out of control. And so this is what we're desiring because we can feel in ourselves if someone else is driving or taking us over, it doesn't feel very good. It feels really uncomfortable. And so how do we get from point A to point B? And so this is something that I guide clients through. Of course, this is a process and it has multiple layers, but it is so possible to feel good around food, to not obsess about every meal, to actually feel the hunger, your true hunger in your body, and then eat and not be thinking about food from the minute you wake up to when you go to bed. And so how we sort of work through this and get to that B, where we're feeling good around food. I had one client describe it as sort of that French relationship with food where you have an amazing meal, you indulge, and then you can let it go. You don't obsess about it after. You enjoy the meal and you feel good, and then you get to choose. So I'm going to guide you through sort of the three areas that I guide my clients through to really see their obsession with food. And so the first area is all around nourishment or lack of nourishment. So when we are emotional eaters, that we tend to be also have a diet mentality. To be honest, our society is kind of created around these diet mentalities and don't eat so much and this many calories. There's a lot of old, sort of thinking around food. We don't really understand food on a deeper level. And so with this diet mentality, what happens is that we are constantly restricting food. We're not nourishing ourselves enough throughout the day. And so this just leads us into more obsessive thoughts about food because we are physiologically not meeting the needs of our body. So we need a certain amount of nutrients and calories, etc., in our body. And if we're restricting that, we can obsess about food, especially if we, at the back of our head, we feel like we have to lose weight or we have to restrict our calories and we have this other goal. We're going against our system and it's screaming at us to eat. And that's a way we create binging because we haven't been nourishing ourselves. When we eat, we're going to want to gorge and we're going to want to go towards all of these foods and just eat a large amount. And so this is how we can create that obsession around food. Of course, once we start nourishing our body throughout the day and we're meeting those needs, it eliminates a lot of these obsessive thoughts. So we feel really good. We're not thinking about food as much because we don't need to. We don't have to. Our biology is not telling us we need to. So we eliminate this one layer of these obsessive thoughts around food. This doesn't mean we've solved our emotional eating. There are other layers. And so if we look at the next layer, which is around our body, if we are sort of pushing the limits of our body and sort of going, over exercising at the gym, let's say we're not getting enough rest, we're not getting the right type of movement, we imbalance our body, we imbalance our hormones, and this can trigger more hunger. So if we're not resting enough, we're actually creating an imbalance in our hunger hormones, and we're going to crave more food because we haven't rested enough. We haven't gotten that deep rest. And it doesn't mean 10 hours you've slept. It's the quality of your sleep that matters as well, and your routines and rituals around that. And so that can trigger the, hunger and thinking about food. But if we work backwards, we could see that we need to look more at what's going on around us and what we have been sort of doing to trigger more hunger in our body. And so this is a way we can reduce that obsession, because now, it's not that our body is trying to use food to make up for the lack of energy we have. When we get the right things in place, we'll eliminate that need. And finally, the third area that's going to be really important with eliminating this obsessive sort of nature of food is really around that emotional eating pattern, around when we're using food to soothe ourselves from any discomfort or stress in our day. And to be honest with you, the first two layers that I mentioned, with restricting our food and with the way we're treating our body, that creates a mood imbalance, which triggers emotional eating. But here, what I'm talking about is those unresolved emotions and events in our lives, traumas. It can be big T, little t, unresolved events in our lives that are being triggered. And when they come up, we go to food to soothe because we don't know how to deal with that discomfort. So it's a little bit nuanced versus the first two that I shared with you. And so here, the obsession about food is to really sort of put a band-aid on these emotions, to not feel them, to soothe ourselves. And this can be very instant. And this is where we might feel the most out of control, because we're just watching ourselves just kind of spiral into this emotional eating episode and not really realize what's going on this deeper level. And so when we deal with this level, I don't even want to say deal with it, when we really turn towards ourselves and move through these emotions and process and really create resolution, we're able to move forward so much more powerfully, because we find out what our true needs are. We start not using food to soothe, but looking at what we truly needed to move out of that situation. Because every time we're hit or triggered into that situation, we're going to go towards food in our day-to-day life. But if we resolve it at the root, which is usually some incident that's happening when we were younger, we create a new way of working with that. That's actually what we needed, that we weren't given when we were younger. So emotional eating is a coping mechanism. It's not, and it's a band-aid. It's not true resolution. And so when we do that, we no longer need food to soothe, because it's not truly meeting our needs. It kind of goes poof. We won't think about the food, because part of the reason we think about the food is it distracts us from what's going on under the surface. But when we really deal with that, we don't need to think about food, and we create a new way of being with whatever's coming up for us. And this is how we move away from obsessing about food. Food will have its natural place in our life of nourishing us. Yes, food feels good, it's pleasurable, but not to this kind of craving and agitation state that we've been feeling. It will feel good, and it will feel like a choice. And so when we start doing that, we naturally start feeling good around food. We start feeling good in our body. We're making better choices for the way we're nourishing ourselves, better choices about our body, and we're moving through what's going on under the surface, those emotions, which is giving us more information on how we can move in the right direction and meet our true needs. And so when we do this, it is amazing. We start feeling at ease, free, and confident in our body and around food. And so this is the process that we work through inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program, which is my step-by-step methodology with lots of support and guidance and meditations to work through this pattern. So you don't obsess about food, you don't obsess about your body, you're really coming back to yourself and feeling good and feeling at ease and feeling confident. And so if you'd like to find out more about the program, I will leave a link below. And if you are ready to resolve your emotional eating, I'd love to invite you to book in an emotional eating assessment call. On the call, we find out more about you, what your goals are, and how we can support you in the program. So if this is calling to you, you can do that. I'll put the link below. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe. And I look forward to sharing more with you. And I hope you have a great day.